So let's say you're already a background singer, but you've had the feedback that you kind of look like a tree on stage. You might want to work with a movement coach, not necessarily dancing. You don't have to, be MC Hammer or anything like that, or whoever. MC Hammer, I'm so dated.
I hope that they know who he is.
They might not know.
And this is, I know you and I have chatted a little bit about making sure that you're staying ready and that you keep up with your vocal athleticism. And, like I was saying at the beginning, not only are you an internationally renowned vocal coach, you also are a professional touring singer, and you have been for many years. And so I kind of wanted to get your take on what it means to be a vocal athlete, and how to keep your voice healthy, and what to do to prepare for what's to come.
First of all, you got to take care of your body. Your instrument's in your body. So what's good for the most part for your body is good for your voice. So staying in overall general health, which means eating correctly, getting enough sleep, doing some sort of physical exercise on a regular basis, because people don't realize singing is very physical. I can tell you, just when I started traveling for singing, just the travel would knock me out. And I'm like, just going, like, for example, I live in the southwest part of France. And when I would go up to Paris, you get up there and you're mostly taking the metro. That was so tiresome for me because I wasn't used to it. And I'm like, wow, I need to up my cardio. So that's just common sense, just basic body health. There's the mental health that we often don't talk about as much as we should. And then there's the actual instrument. So taking care of the instrument. I still study regularly because, as my teacher always says, you don't know what it's like to sing at the age you currently are. It means something different. Every year you age, every cell in your body ages, your muscles change, your reaction time changes, and you've got to learn to adapt to that and make sure that what you're asking of your instrument is okay. There's going to be things that will need to be adapted. And then to continue your technique, because the voice is such an intricate machine. There's so many parts that have to work together seamlessly. That takes a lot of time to get it well oiled. And then once you get it there, you don't want to lose it,
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. And I think I just wanted to highlight the mental health too, because, we are living in a pandemic, and it's kind of like, well, there's no end in sight, and it's hard to remain optimistic if you are in the arts, if you're a performing artist. And so, but what I've noticed is, many of my clients are so resilient, and they are using this time to hone in on their technique, and look to things that make them happy, and such as songwriting or doing online live performances. Is there anything you can suggest to help artists stay mentally healthy, or to stay balanced during this difficult time?
Personally, the first thing I think I needed to do, which is not necessarily the first thing I did, the first thing I needed to do is to get centered. Because I think a lot of people in the very beginning of this pandemic, because we didn't know how long this was going to last, we're like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to songwrite, and I'm going to work on my piano and guitar, and I'm going to do this and do that. And it's like, we wind up putting all this pressure. We had all this newfound freedom. And then we wound up putting all this extra pressure on. And then when we didn't feel like, or wasn't able to get everything done that we had set about doing, you wind up putting yourself in a place of defeat, which, no artist needs that. We have enough of that in the way of when it comes to our projects and, and auditions and things like that. So getting centered was simply, I needed to shut things out. And I apologize if any of my friends are like, where has she been? Because I literally shut down. I stopped communicating at some point with people because I needed to hear my own voice. I needed to not have outside information telling me what I should be doing. I call it shooting yourself to death. You should be doing this. No,
absolutely.
I needed to just calm down, because honestly, when the pandemic hit, I had a gazillion tours coming up, whether it was teaching or singing. I was booked back to back all the way up until through actually this like a year and a half ahead. So
wow,
all that got thrown out the window, and I'm like, okay, crickets. Now what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, wait, stop. Just stop. Take some time. First of all, take some rest. Take
Yes.
some rest. Sleep in for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a little pig out session, which was not very helpful because then I had to go work
Right
that
there with you.
off. So, up and down, and I
Yeah.
was really hard on myself. And
Yeah.
I'm still a little hard on myself. And I have to
Mm-hmm.
remind myself, listen, you're living through a world health crisis.
Yes.
That's not easy. You can't
Yeah.
expect yourself to be completely perfect through that whole process. So to me, that was the first thing I needed to do, which I didn't do. But I've
Yeah.
come to, my body just kind of just rebelled, almost like a
Yes.
child that you won't let that child do what it wants for a while. And at some point, the child just starts acting out. That's how my body and
Yes.
my soul was just feeling like, grumpy and
Mm.
just out of sorts. So once I was
Mm-hmm.
able to sort of take stock of that, I'm taking every day, one day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get myself to be a little less of a perfectionist because I'm a sufferer.
Right
And
there with you.
I'm trying to allow myself to do things in very short and small increments. So
Mm-hmm.
I just started taking piano again
Wow.
after a whole year of free time. But I just like, it's a trade. I have a good friend who's a pianist and he wants to sing. Um,
Amazing.
and I'm just making myself do 10 to 15-minute sessions
Yeah.
because that I can do. That's
Yeah.
doable. And then
Yeah.
when I'm done, I still feel like I want to do more, but I don't. I leave it for the next session. And I'm just being really kind to myself. Like, okay, you didn't
Yeah.
do everything you wanted to get done, but you got something done. And then I'm just trying
Mm-hmm.
to be curious,
Mm-hmm.
curious about things that we always say we don't have the time.
Mm-hmm.
We have time for things that we make time for. That's what it simply
Absolutely.
comes down to.
Yeah.
Making time for the things that are important to you. And so realizing where I'm wasting time and energy and trying to direct that towards something that's actually going to give me something in return rather than just wasted time.
Yes.
So
And I so appreciate you sharing your experience because I think hearing what
thanks.
other people have endured during this difficult time
Mm.
really helps us to feel less alone. And
Mm-hmm.
Cheryl Porter, welcome. We love you,
Hey,
by the way.
Cheryl, how you doing, baby?
Just love her.
Yeah.
And so to ask you, I've had a few questions roll in for you about style, vocal style. And I know you
Okay.
are a multi-genre singer.
Yes.
And I would like to get your take on, hello, I would like to get your take on what it means to be a vocal stylizing athlete. Like,
Well,
where do we start? Like, I guess these are people who have honed in on their technique, but they're
mhm.
ready to explore different styles and genres. So what's your advice for them?
My advice is really simple. I like things that are simple and dumb. See, the thing is, you learn most things,
Yes.
basic things by what you've seen and heard and done around you. So you learn how to talk because of the way your parents and your families talk to you. The
Yeah.
vocabulary that they use tends to get into your vocabulary. And then, of course, you add on to that by reading, talking with other people. So to me, the same thing in music is if you want to have great style,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to surround yourself with the singers, the greatest, whatever genre
Mm-hmm.
you're singing, doesn't matter. You've got to go to the greats. Don't go to the mediocres. Don't go to the okay. You got to go to the ones that, that span the test of time so that 50 years later, people are still talking about Sam Cooke. There's a
Yes.
reason for that. There's a reason for that. People who don't even speak his language, they just know that this is greatness. So going
Absolutely.
to the source
Yes.
rather than picking up the latest, hottest fad, which is usually a very much watered down version. You've got to go to the greats. Now, I'm not saying don't listen to current. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying to learn, you've got to go
Mm-hmm.
to the source. You got to go
That's
to the
right.
roots of the tree. Don't just, take the apple. Go to the roots of the tree and then impregnate
Mm-hmm.
yourself with that,
Mm-hmm.
and not just listen to them as if you were listening to background music. Study them. They are
Mm-hmm.
literally a library. So what I mean by study them, I say when somebody says, oh, I really like whoever, whatever singer, you fill in the name. I'm going to always go to why. It's not
Yes.
enough to say, I like this person. You've got to know what is it that gives you goosebumps. Is it their
Mm-hmm.
tone? Is
Mm-hmm.
it their vocal placement? Is it the way they do a run? Is it their sense of rhythm? Is it how they linger on a word? These are all elements of style. And every singer, if you break them down, you begin to see that each of these different things can be learned. And so I'm actually adding on to that, because a lot of people
Yeah.
are like, style can't be taught. You either have it or you don't. That's a load of crap. That's a load of
Yeah.
crap. Style is learned, and you learn it from whatever you're listening to. So if you listen to crap, your style's going to be crap.
Right.
You know,
So you got to study. You got to study style.
You got to study.
Yeah.
But you got to study the right stuff, and you have to study smart.
Yes.
You can't just listen to everything and expect something great to come out. And I think that's really important. I had the chance to kick it up for a while with George Benson. Yeah, I'm name dropping. And he said to me, garbage in, garbage out. That just simply means whatever you listen to. If you listen to garbage, you're going to sound like garbage.
So the same energy you put into learning your vocal technique is probably just, you know, the same percentage of energy that you need to put into style. You need to listen. You need to, you know, I loved what you said about Sam Cooke, because we can hear his songs and do passive listening, but unless we're actually sitting down and really hearing his phrasing and his riffs and his nuances, we're not really studying it unless we're really honing in.
When I was in college studying jazz, what I would actually do was spend about a good month or more, depending on who it was, on one artist. So I would listen to everything I could get my hands on, everything. And that just really gave me a sense of what was the essence of that person. You know, the essence. If you peel off an orange, the skin of an orange, what you smell is that essence. So you recognize that it's an orange. When you study somebody for a month, everything they do, the good, the bad, the ugly, you take stock of their career, beginning, middle, end. So you get to see their evolution. You get to see common themes. Oh, I noticed that this person often sings in B flat. Or I noticed that, you know, this person knows that their B flat 4 is the bee's knees. And so they make sure that they key things so that they can hit that note and shine. They know how to make themselves look good. As you study artists, you get to know what makes that person so great. And you can start to incorporate some of these things. You say, well, I might not have this person's voice, but this element is something that I can do. So I'll take a piece of this. So literally, you are a sum of everything you've ever heard, seen, listened to, and lived through. And so if 10 people listen to the same 10 artists, you're still not going to get the same sound out of each of them, because they have so many other things that leave an imprint on them. Being a background artist it's funny because you're the background, but trust me, background artists can make or break an artist. So in other words, you can have an artist that is maybe a lead singer that's maybe just so. The great ones, the ones that have good management and they know what they're doing, they have the best background singers ever because they make them shine. It's a tough job. It's a tough job because a lot has to be done. You have to be very flexible in many ways. You have to be able to move. You have to look good on stage. That doesn't mean you have to be thin, but you have to present well. So you have to know, you have to be able to do your makeup, your hair. You just have to have a look. You also have to know how to blend in if that's what they're asking for. You have to know where your place is, and you've got to enjoy that role. I enjoy singing backup as much as I enjoy singing lead. I really, really do. Because there's something about holding down the fort. Because as a backup singer, you're required to do the same thing night after night. You don't have the luxury of a lead singer like, oh, I'm feeling it this way this night. So I'm going to just take it right. Or I'm a little sick. And so instead of singing that high note, I'm going to just take this other note. You've got an assigned role, and you've got to be good enough to do it night after night with the same level of efficiency every single night. You've got to hit, doesn't matter, you've got to hold it down. And as a background singer, oftentimes, if that's really your gig, oftentimes you are called to do many different genres. Now, I will say, it was never my goal to be a multifaceted singer. That wasn't, you know what I wanted to be? I wanted to be an R&B star. I'll be quite honest with you. And I went to school and I started learning jazz, jazz voice. And I did that, and they required that I take classical lessons. But I've always liked listening to classical, so that was cool. And so I did that. And
Yeah.
I grew up listening to soul, jazz, R&B, and gospel. So it just happened that, you know, the way I was born, I was born into that culture mostly, you know.
Yes.
You can't be an American and not have heard jazz, soul, R&B, blues. And that happens to
Yeah.
be the basis of most American music.
Yes.
And of course, any music in the world that is influenced by American music has those influences. So I'm lucky with my musical heritage because I was born into greatness in that way, and I appreciate it. Then I had to learn, you know, some of the classical European stuff, which it was great for me as well. But it wasn't a choice. It was just, I was just born into it, really.
Amazing. What a journey. What a journey. And so you did a degree in classical, but you also did a degree in jazz.
Yeah.
Which is like really remarkable. And
I have to go back to the lessons thing simply because I know a lot of times working musicians, because if they're going from tour to tour to tour, they're not in repair mode. They're not in, I'm learning something new about my voice. They're in, I'm maintaining mode. I'm maintaining what I've already established so that I can do the job that I was hired to do with my current abilities, right? So in this time off, we should be learning new things about the instrument. If some of you toured heavily, you know, coming out off of that first part of the of COVID, hopefully that was a period of rest. The voice does need rest, but it doesn't need so much rest so that we get, you know, vocal fatigue after singing for 15 minutes. It could be just a couple days of rest. That really depends on how your body responds to rest and how much, how hard you were going in. But you really should then be learning something new about your instrument, making sure that your instrument is still very pliable, very flexible. Because a lot of times when you're just touring, you're maintaining, and the stress of it all, because it's very stressful to tour. It's physically draining. The travel, you're often in, you're never home. So you're not sleeping in your own bed. You don't control your environment. You often don't control what you eat. These are all things that are a huge shock to your system, to your morale, and of course to your vocal cords. I make sure that I travel with a humidifier because I've been in places where, I mean, they were hotter than hell, literally. I had a place that put me in a hotel where the headboard was right in front of the radiator.
Whoa.
I woke up sounding like Barry White. I was like, what is this? But anyway, let me go back.
Oh my God.
So knowing that when you're touring, you're maintaining. When you're off tour, you're getting a little bit of rest, and then you're getting back to learning something new about your instrument. And then eventually, if you know there's a tour coming up, you're also doing the things that are going to prepare you to actually to do that tour without hurting yourself.
Absolutely. I always learn something new. I mean, I've been at this for years, and I still take lessons with our mentors. We share this, you know, the same mentors.
Yes, we do.
You know, and I have my humble moment every time I take a lesson. It's beginner's mind, and I always learn something new about the voice. And you know, I train as a singer because I feel like that's going to help my clients. I don't just train as a vocal coach. I train as a singer because I want to put myself in their shoes. And I think, you know, like what you're saying there is incredible, that use this time to learn something new about your voice. We need to vocalize. We need to maintain it. And lessons are a huge part of that for sure.
The lessons, and then you've got to dedicate yourself to whatever it is that you're focusing on technically for the moment, making sure that you're getting back to that place a little bit every day. A lot of times people are like, I don't have time to practice. The hell you don't. If you don't practice, you're not gonna have no gigs. That's the real deal. The thing is, if you don't have an instrument you can rely on, you'll have way too much time on your hands.
Absolutely.
So sometimes I'm a huge fan of practicing 15, 20 minutes, just here and there, even sometimes 5. But this is focused practicing. So let's say I'm working on a particular area of my voice. I'm making sure that whatever I do in that 5 minutes hits that mark for 5 straight minutes. And that's all I need sometimes. Just making sure and I can make it easy by doing that 5 minutes several times during the day. That does so much for getting your mind and body lined up. Because then the next time you go to it, your body's like, I got this. I know what we're supposed to do here. You're not having to think about it.
Absolutely. That muscle memory kicks in, and they call it deliberate practice or focused practice.
Yeah.
And I think that the studies have shown that goes a long way.
How often are you going to, it's really going to depend on what kind of athlete you're going to be. A sprinter trains differently than a long distance singer, a long distance runner trains. Now they may cross train and do some of the same things, but not to the same degree. So you really have to train for what you're asking your voice to do. That's the most important. So that kind of information is going to come from, your work with whoever your voice teacher is. They need to know what you're doing. You need to have that discussion with them so they can help you with your goals towards that. All exercise, it's not one size fits all. It really has to be very deliberate and very specific to your needs, your goals, and your specific problems. I think you can also take this time to maybe learn skills that are connected to your art form. So let's say you're already a background singer, but you've had the feedback that you kind of look like a tree on stage. You might want to work with a movement coach, not necessarily dancing. You don't have to, be MC Hammer or anything like that, or whoever.
Yeah.
MC Hammer. I'm so dated.
I hope that they know who he is.
They might not know who he is, but but it could just be movement, just moving back and forth and having that become something that's just natural while you're singing.
So any last words of wisdom for us in vocal health side of things?
I'm going to say, listen to your body. The body is actually smart and wonderfully built. The body will send you signs and signals when you're doing something it doesn't like, when you're doing something wrong. A lot of times we push ahead, just like, that pain I felt in my throat every single night for the last, 2 weeks. I'll just take some, a shot and get over it. But that shot takes away the ability to feel when you're doing something wrong, which then sets you up for a lot more injury. So start to listen to your body. And instead of being afraid of what you might find, put on your big girl panties, go to the doctor, get scoped. If you're feeling that your voice is not functioning the way it usually does, if it sounds different, there's a modification in how clear your voice is or how easily the notes are produced, or if you're actually missing notes in the middle, you're missing your top, you're missing your bottom, whereas you had it before, go to the doctor. At the very least, they'll say there's nothing wrong. This is probably just a technical issue. Nip it in the bud before it actually becomes a real problem where maybe surgery or time off stage would be required, because time is money. We can't really afford most of the times to take off 4 months because we oversang.
Yes, absolutely.
Get ahead of it. Listen to your body.
That's great advice. I always tell people just, get scoped, rule out anything problematic. And then we know what we're working with, right?
We know what we're working with.
Yeah. I'm just checking to see if there's any questions that came through now.
Okay.
Cheryl did say, love you ladies, keep on shining.
Oh,
that makes me so happy. Thank you so much for joining us today. And hopefully we can have you back here.
I'd love it. Thank you for having me. Just remember, don't get ready, stay ready.
Thank you so much, Monique Thomas, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Take care, Alida.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.